Hey everyone, it's Spoonful for you, back at you again with another video, and today I am doing a Fear the Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 7 review titled Anton. This review will include spoilers, so heads up. You guys should be tuning in for my review, because Dan's reviews, he just hate watches the show at this point, because I thought Anton was a great episode. Now, the first half of Season 8 was a bit rocky here and there, and some of the dialogue was a little bit laughable. Um, just the performances in the first half felt off, and the show could eventually fall off again. Like episode 8 could be atrocious for all we know, but episode 7 I felt like was much more natural, much more grounded, and I never cringed once. There was maybe one moment when I cringed from the dialogue, but that's about it. It flowed a lot more natural, the performances were great, and I enjoyed all the new characters. Um, I like Frank as a character, I like Klaus as a character, and we've only seen them for one episode, so I think Anton did the job very, very well. I also appreciate that, Strand is Strand again. This story about Anton is already tied up, it's already done, which I'm very happy about because nobody wants to see Anton walking around a whole season. Um, so it's good that that whole storyline is already dealt with. I really appreciate the German speaking characters because after watching not Dead City, but Daryl Dixon, it's kind of cool. We get more subtitles, we get more foreign characters, and I think it flowed very organically. The hotel setting was really cool, and I just appreciated the whole arc that Strand had, the whole life that he had. It worked very, very well, in my opinion, and I liked all these characters. It wasn't weird. There's some communities that are kind of strange, and I thought this community was pretty good. Now, right now I'm talking about the pros. I will get into the cons. I love the dynamics between Madison and Strand. I think Kim Dickens is fantastic in this episode. She was a very, very weird character in the first half of season 8. Her acting was a bit stiff here and there, and it felt like she was phoning it in sometimes. But in this episode, Kim Dickens gave it her all. She was fantastic, and you could tell that she loved the character of Madison Clark. I mean, her dynamic with Victor Strand, Coleman Domingo is fantastic. They have a lot of chemistry together, and a lot of that was the highlight of this episode. But I do like, a lot more. Daniel Sharman in this episode as Troy Otto, I've talked about him for a long time, was fantastic. And I'm making this review because I made it for all the naysayers, all the people that said Troy Otto was not returning. He's back in the flesh, and it was awesome. He nearly kills Strand. Daniel has a showdown with him. It's really cool, and I'm very, very happy that Troy appears in episode 7 because a lot of the people on YouTube, a lot of the YouTubers thought that Troy's first appearance would be episode 8. Thankfully, it's episode 7 because I think if you want to set up a season of the show, you have to set it up properly. You have to introduce the villain in the first episode, and they did. Troy's motives, as of right now, are clear. All he wants to do is take over Padre, and it's clear. I think it's the best villain motivations in years because Fear has a problem of overcomplicating its villains. Padre, the villains were so complicated. Teddy, I love Teddy, but his motives sometimes did get complicated. Even Virginia. But Troy, his motives right now are literally just revenge and take over Padre. So when you have motives that are just easy, following, you have a better villain. You have a villain that you can root for. You don't have to overthink things. So I really appreciated that. Troy's men, I think, were pretty cool as well. They're not overly vicious. And Daniel Sharman's performance as Troy is a little bit more softer this time, but a lot more menacing and evil. He's not a hothead like he was in season 3. Now he is kind of violent, and he's very, very calculating. He has a big plan. This is his plan to destroy Madison Clark. And I am all for it. I loved it. I loved the settings. There's a lot of diverse settings in this episode. Savannah, Georgia, once again, looks great. And I'm happy that we get, a lot of Fear characters in these episodes because one of my problems, especially with season 6 and a lot of season 7, was you had these bottle episodes where you had maybe one or two characters each season. But this season so far, especially this episode, had Daniel, it had uh, June, it had Sherry, it had Madison, it had Strand and Troy. So it had a lot of characters that we knew and loved from the other episodes. So that's great. So the pros, there's a lot of pros, and I think Holman Domingo is fantastic as Strand. I was worried that, his performance would be a little weird, but he's a great character. Now let's get into the cons of this episode. There are very few cons. The first con, of course, is it's a nitpick. It's not much of a con, but Madison passing out continuously with her oxygen tank. Now, on one point, I kind of enjoy the realism that she needs oxygen because she did get out of a fire, and a fire, of course, of that magnitude would cause a lot of damage on a character. I think people would complain if she was overly badass because people would say, "Oh, but she did make it out of a fire," blah blah blah. So I kind of like the balance, but she did kind of pass out a lot in this episode, and she needed a lot of oxygen. So, but that's a nitpick. It's not really a negative. It's not much of a con, but yeah, it was a nitpick. So now let's get into a con that's just a gripe that I have, but it is reusing music, specifically Nick's theme song of his death. I don't like it when they reuse a lot of music, and it cheapens the episode, and sometimes you hear the same music in scenes. So, personally, I did not enjoy them remixing music, but I did enjoy Troy's theme song that they introduced in this episode. So, you have some bad, and then you have some good music. And then another con, it looks like they reused just a couple shots from other episodes. It looks like they used the shot from season 8, episode 1, where Morgan, Madison, and Mo are like meeting each other for the first ever time, and there's a bunch of zombies walking around. It looks like they reused a couple of those shots. I could be wrong, but I noticed they did this in episode 6 as well, in the swamp. They reused a lot of shots from episode 1, and they put it in episode 6. So that is not cool. That cheapens the show, and people don't like when they do that. It's not good. It's a negative. But other than that, there's not many cons in this episode. I thought this was a very solid episode. It introduces all the characters back. It sets up the villains' motivations. You fear for the characters. I think it does everything that a opener should do, and I'm all for now. I'm on the ride. It's going to be great. Very, very happy they brought Troy back in this episode, not episode 8, because it would just fall flat on its face. So now we have a proper villain. We have characters. We have motivations. We have all new characters introduced. I think it is going to be a good season. But episode 7 was very solid. I would rate it, honestly, an 8 out of 10. I liked it that much. I think it was really good. And honestly, I had no problems. Not many problems at all. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and goodbye.